Right after he had come here to work as a young lawyer, I was involved in the public housing rent strike. And Buck, coming from the South, coming from the segregated situation, typifies and represents the best of the Lawyers Guild, because he came here and we fought together. He never thought he was better than the people. He always came as a solid member of a movement to uplift the people, whether they were lawyers, whether they were legal workers, whether they were just people who were trying to get better housing. And he is the best person to do this next representation of the honoring of the great jurors. I'm glad to have been around 40 years and have known Buck Davis, as this had to say.
Well, I know that's the part that y'all been waiting for. I get to introduce someone who needs no introduction. And therefore my cast is somewhat loose. You know you're lucky when the first federal judge you ever meet is Damon. Just like you know you're lucky when the first Arabic person you ever meet is Anthony Jabbar.
Amen.
I grew up in the segregated South. I went to college where they shut down the schools to avoid immigration. I had no idea of the richness of the political life of this city until I came here dodging the draft in 1968. The people in Boston and Richmond still don't know what happened. Anyway. There are in your programs the string of magnificent cases which Judge Keith has been involved in. But before he was on the bench, he was an activist. He was an activist in the movement which took the position that urban renewal is Negro removal. And it's still true. And in Benton Harbor, Michigan, it's ethnic cleansing. And therefore, however much he has done on the bench, he started before that. But once he got on the bench, he didn't change. And I'll say a word about that at the end of my remarks. The main thing about Damon is that he actually likes everybody he meets. And he actually treats everybody he meets with extraordinary respect. And he actually out of his way to include everyone in his orbit. And I will therefore now, having been told that Judge Keith and I have 30 minutes between us, don't groan, we're probably not going to take it, but I'd like to see, probably contrary to the wishes of the committee, 2 minutes to our representative from the Ojibwe Nation, who is also Punkwalanda and who has a short anecdote about the graciousness with which Judge Keith treats everyone. If you haven't read my paper, Pun is the guy who still claims he was framed for a crime he doesn't deny committing.
Thank you, Buck. I'm very pleased to be here with so many people that I
years after the Supreme Court upheld Judge Keith's historic and courageous ruling, I have reconnected with my Ottawa and Ojibwe roots and had joined the tribe and was active in Indian Native American politics. I was a member of a traveling drumming, singing, and dancing troupe that traveled throughout the Midwest performing at exhibitions. In 1991 was the 200th anniversary of the Bill of Rights, and the Supreme Court ordered that all district courts hold some sort of a commemorative event, place a plaque, have an event that would recognize the Bill of Rights. Because the Western District Commission, where I live, has a lot of native law cases, fishing rights, treaty rights cases, the head judge over there in that district court had a lot of connections in the native community, and he was highly respected and honored among the native people. Well, that judge contacted my drum group and wanted to know if we would perform at this commemorative event. And of course, we said yes, anyone would want to support the commemoration of the Bill of Rights. Little did I know that Judge Keith was to be the keynote speaker. So we were in the large courtroom there, and we had our drums set up, and we had one of our veterans, World War II veteran, bring in an Eagle staff. It was a very solemn event for us. Played an honor song in honor of all the veterans who fought and died fighting for that Bill of Rights and for the rule of law. Afterwards, we were invited back to the judge's chambers, all the principals. After Judge Keith gave his keynote address, all the principals were invited back to the judge's chambers for hors d'oeuvres and a meet and greet. There's a narrow hallway behind the courtroom where we could go into the chambers. And as it was, Judge Keith and I met at that doorway, kind of like the Three Stooges, going through the doorway at the same time. And we both turned at each other, and we were this far from each other. And I said to Judge Keith, "Do you remember me?" And he says, "You look so familiar, but I just can't place you." And I said, "I'm from London." Well, Judge Keith reached out and snatched a hold of me and gave me a big hug. He had his hand right on the back of my neck. He whispered in my ear, "We made history together. We stood up together." We both went into the chambers. We had, me and my drum group went over to the hors d'oeuvres tables and stuff in our face. And of course, there was a large crowd around Judge Keith. And I looked up, and in the middle of all this, Judge Keith parted the crowd, almost like Moses in the water. The crowd split, and Judge Keith walked way across this big room, up to me. And he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing quite well." "Well, how long have you been doing this drumming and this singing stuff?" "Well, 10 years. He says, "Well, I wish you the best. It's such a good thing to see you." Of course, my boys were with me. They're like, "Wow, man, who is that? How do you know him?" Well, then we went downstairs for the public reception. Now there's 200 people in this room. Judge Keith did the same thing. Part of the crowd came across the room and said to me, "Introduce me to your friends." So I got to introduce him to all my drumming friends and our head veteran, the World War II hero. And it was deeply moving to me. I've waited 19 years to be able to tell this story to a group of people who would appreciate it. Because as Buck said, it was respect. It was about the person. Judge, I have a different relationship with you than anyone else in this room. You saved my life. Standing on principle, standing on law, standing on what was right. I admire you for your courage. You are a giant in my eyes. Thank you.